Jason Nemro, IS301. Good to still continue to see you. All right. Still trying to look big when you're not. And that's okay. This is the dream of small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs. And because you want to have the same kind of reach, the same kind of ability to enter the market and to even dominate the market, even though you're not very big yet. Always with the dream that you're going to get bigger, I guess. If that's your take, if that's the way you want to do it. These days, I don't know if there's any really amazing reason to stay small. Chances are, if you get popular at all, you simply can't. You used to be able to have choices that way, and I don't know if there's so many choices anymore. You can choose it, I suppose, but it's going to actually be hard to keep people from using you if you provide a good service that people want. You're just going to have to scale at some point. And that's the wonder of having a hosted infrastructure and outsourced labor, is that you can concentrate on what you're good at, or what you would like to be good at, or what you would like to concentrate on. I'm not a money guy. I don't, my biggest dream is not to be a bookkeeper or an office manager. That's not interesting to me particularly. So therefore those would be prime things for me to set up a hosted infrastructure and get outsourced labor to run as much of that for me as humanly possible. At the end of the day, I would rather have somebody else paying my taxes, making sure payroll gets done, and all that stuff. Luckily, we live in a wonderful new world. This is rather new, where you can let other things do that, and that includes your internet presence, your marketing, all those things. This might be the new form of sweat equity that we were talking about in the last video. Because the whole point is to be as smooth and to be as easy to use over the web as you can possibly be. That's one of the reasons for IT in the first place, is to take care of that kind of presence. Although this is the time when we're talking more about enterprise systems, so we need to talk about ERPs and things like that, enterprise resource planning. Because not only do you have to impress customers, you have to kind of impress your employers too, your employees. I once worked for an outfit that was so floppy about just business in general. It was like, oh, come in when you want, leave when you want, just get stuff done. They weren't getting the paperwork done to get me properly hired. I was been there for 3 days and we hadn't even done an I-9 or a W-4. So it was like, and I finally said, you know what? I can't work like this. I can't work like this just trusting to the fact that you guys aren't a bunch of incompetent boobs and that I'm actually going to get paid. I'm getting this impression that you only get around to paying people when, it suits you. And it's like, oh, don't worry, we'll take care of you. And it's like, I want you to be steady. Anyway, so the same thing comes with all the other things that you do. It all ends up being about trust and about appearing trustworthy. There are ways of doing this so that you don't have to look bad. In fact, right now, I would imagine there's probably 3 or 4 different solutions. I don't know what exactly they are because I'm not worrying about that particularly. I'm not trying to start a business. Many of you might be. So in discussions and chats, feel free to talk about the different products that can be like, we used to call it business in a box, where you would just purchase a service and they would basically say, well, here you go. Here's your payroll. Here's your this and that. As long as you're paying the fees And as long as you're throwing us the amount of money that we need, we will take care of all that messy paperwork for you. We'll keep the IRS off your back. We have an accountant on staff. We'll take care of all that stuff. And that's really kind of where this stuff is going. When you go and buy a ERP system, for instance, Eastern New Mexico University, where I work now, they use Banner, and Banner is a very large and very expansive. It's even hard to call it a resource planning or an enterprise planning system. It really does run your entire college. You mostly just give the record keeping and process management over to Banner, Aleutian Banner in our case. And it just runs everything. Everybody has to have an account on Banner. Even you students, you don't even know it, but you actually have some access to this large database and all the processes that run behind it. And it's all there so that you guys can feel like you're being trusted. We put a fleshy face on it. I don't know if I am one of those. But if you go and you register for classes, some of you prefer to do it online. That's a new concept for a lot of people. Some people that are my age or older, they much more prefer dealing with human beings and people. So you would actually come into and see a person, and that person would do all the interfacing with the database. Help you get your classes and things like that. As we become more automated, it's something that you see you actually do in the database as opposed to talking to a person, and they refer to certain books and they get all the materials together for you. I'm sorry, I got an itchy nose. Now that's done in a very, it's all set up, and all the processing and the workflow is done on through the database. And it's all about trust. Do you trust these people? If they don't operate this way, are they operating well? Sometimes it's hard if you're going to a business, you don't know if they're a legitimate business. They can put up a wonderful web front. We were talking about that last time. And yet be absolutely, cheats and sneaks. If somebody calls you on the phone and says, "Hey, I'm from Dell, and your computer game came back to us and told us that you have a problem. We'd like to remote into your computer, and it'll only cost you $50. And you get a little, sometimes you might get a little interesting if they seem not to have a good mastery of the English language. But honestly, with so much outsourcing going on, you're often going to be talking to people from other parts of the world that may not speak English very well. And it's hard to tell. We outsource so much. Even the big companies are starting to outsource more. So you can't even tell the difference that way. You go, am I being ripped off? Is my $50 going to actually do something for me? Or are they just finding a way to get onto my computer to steal things? And you go, it's hard to tell. I can tell you one thing. Dell doesn't behave like that. Although if they thought that there was some money to be had in it, they would start trying to behave like that. So, calling you up without you having said, "Hey, I've got a problem." They're saying, "Hey, your computer told us that you have a problem." Trust me, they would go that way. They were starting to go that way when I worked for Dell just a few years back. Business is getting really interesting. In some ways, they want to appear smaller because it's more personalized. In some ways, some companies want to appear bigger so that you'll trust them more and you'll think they have stability and you'll become a regular customer of theirs. And it's really hard to tell anymore. It used to be that you would just put people in little boxes and they would behave the way you wanted them to. But we're finding that people are very variable. And that's tricky. Anyway, so there you go. You can outsource a lot of stuff and get your business dream.